of the Federation, George Akume, on behalf of President Bola Tinubu. TVC News Labour correspondent Joke Adisa has details.
After last night's meeting between the federal government and organized labor, expectations for an end to the indefinite nationwide strike were high. In line with the promise to meet with their organs, the Nigeria Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress held a joint National Executive Council meeting early Tuesday, where a decision was reached to put industrial action on hold. At the NLC headquarters where the meeting held, some workers gathered to discuss the development. Moments after the suspension of the strike, it was a slow return to normalcy as most government offices were still locked. Here at the Court of Appeal, the news of the suspension of the industrial action didn't come early.
As you can see, it's 100% compliance. So we all comply. Nobody is entering the office until we had a directive from the national.
At the National Assembly, an earlier chaotic situation gradually gives way to calmness after news of the suspension filtered in.
The strike was going on this morning, and we got an information from NLC Secretariat that the strike had been suspended for 5 days, and I had to call my members to address them.
Some Abuja residents are happy the strike has been suspended.
In the coming days, things will get better. And the government too have already seen how Nigerians are passing through these pains, and they knows what to do.
We thought it's going to reach evening before they will suspend, but you know it's negotiation. Maybe they have reached some certain agreement, that's why they say, okay, let them suspend it. But I bet you that the negotiating council will continue till 7 days.
Traffic in the city center is relatively light as commercial vehicles struggle to get passengers.
Although organized labor has announced a ceasefire as far as industrial action, which started on Monday, is concerned, but here at the Federal Secretariat, it is still very empty, apparently because many of the workers were still at home when the information filtered in. By tomorrow, which is Wednesday, we expect that human traffic here will resume normally. Joke Adisa, TVC News, Abuja.
Interesting. Well, joining us in the studio is Chairman, House Committee on Electoral Matters, Honorable Prince Bayo Balogun. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. I like the way our reporter puts it. She says Labour has called for a ceasefire. Although
said it succinctly.
Right?
That's what it actually is.
Really? Even though Labour says they are just relaxing every measure that they put in place to ensure that they have the strike so they can engage government holistically as it is, and that engagement will continue by 1 p.m. today, according to reports. But then we saw the president stepping in yesterday saying, give me all the details. He spoke with the finance minister that I need all the details when it comes to what it will take to have something that is reflective of the situation on the ground as it is. Talk to us from your perspective how this matter has been handled between the Labour and the government, because there are those who believe that this strike shouldn't have happened in the first place.
Thank you once again for having me.
Right.
At first, let's even define what minimum wage is.
Right.
Because there's a serious misconception. The minimum wage is the least amount any worker should go home with. It's not about government pay, government workers' pay. This agitation has always been about payment to government workers. Government workers are supposed to be far above minimum wage. We are talking about people, many of us have assets at home. How much do we pay them?
Right.
Are they covered? Even the NLC only covers the organized labor. What is
so it's just their members they are focused on?
Organized labor, when we talk about labor in Nigeria? Who takes care of the artisans? You give your mechanic a job, you just believe you can pay him whatever you like.
Right.
There's no standard. NLC should have gone beyond the organized labor now and be talking about how do we regulate other sectors. you talk about exploitation in these Chinese and Indian companies.
Casualization of workers.
Casualization of workers. We only talk about government. When they want to talk about casualization, they come to only government. These are where serious exploitations are going in. They are going on in these areas, and nobody is really standing out for these people, so except for most of these CSOs and NGOs.
So if I get you correctly, you're saying that the NLC is not holistic in its approach.
It's covering just less than 10% in the labor force of Nigeria. And then we now have to talk about the effect of a minimum wage. The federal government should not have the powers to solely decide minimum wage. Because it's not going to be only binding on its own workers. You have the states, you have the local government, even governance generally is covering less than 30% of labor. You're talking about the general people, the artisans, who covers them, who covers many workers, who takes in their interest, and then the SMEs.
SMEs.
Yes, who now decide on their behalf how much we can pay. Because you want to grow the economy, you don't grow it through the government workers. You grow it through the small-scale industries.
Yes.
The little by little money people collect. And we cannot compare our system with the Western world. They pay per hours. We pay per month. Irrespective of what you do. You
get paid. Informal sector per day.
Yes, they even pay as you go. Many of them is just pay as you go. How do we regulate this system to ensure that everybody is covered? Because once you make it a law, one mistake some people are making is, by the time they take this decision, is brought to the House, it becomes a law, it becomes binding. Even to the NLC chairman, president, your workers, how much are you paying them? So I think because we have not been putting implementation at that level, leaving implementation only at the government level, government workers level, by the time we finish this, we ensure that we take the implementation fully to 100%. So that is where people will really understand what it takes to talk about negotiating minimum wage.
As it is. All right, let's quickly bring in our second guest, Michael Adele, a public affairs analyst. He joins us in the studio. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, let's get your own perspective to this issue. He is saying that the position of labor, organized labor, is not holistic enough because it's not covering every other sector of the society, even though organized private sector has come out to speak on where they stand with regards to this matter of minimum wage as it is. But in the matters of how holistic organized labor is negotiating this manner and its implication, what's your position?
Thank you very much and good morning again. I think from my own perspective, we have to go beyond minimum wage. We have to put an extension into living wage because, like you rightly said, minimum wage is the least a worker could actually earn. While this current situation, looking at all the indices that we have going towards inflation, high price of goods and services, we should be talking about a living wage because that is where, because every sector, every community, every constituency, every state has different economic factor.
Right.
Yeah, where you have to look into. Somebody that lives in Lagos can be compared to somebody that lives in Borno or Plateau, depending on the economic circumstances. Now, for me, the labor are fighting a cause, but they have other areas that actually covers every workers in the country. We're not talking about ill treatment of workers. We're not talking about how the bastardized workers, especially the foreign employers.
Casualization
of
workers.
We see them how there is no avenue where people could actually complain and actually raise voices. There should be whistleblower. There should be a dedicated number that people could actually call and say this anonymously, that this is what is happening to us. So we, at the moment, I mean, like Russell said, holistically, we shouldn't be talking about just the wage. There are other factors, other sectors, other areas. Cost of living that we should be looking at. Then some people, you'll find them working in an environment for 10 years, 15 years in the same position without nobody looking into the affairs of that person. So when we're talking about the wages, I mean, it's one thing. Living standards is another thing. Then the welfare of the workers in the country is paramount. We need to look into that as well. So putting all this together, that is what Labour should be talking about, not just the wages alone.
All right. Perhaps this is the reason why some persons have said that Labour is inconsistent in its demands. If you look at last year, 2023, when the president said subsidy is gone, Labour came out with, they were going on strike. They even went on a day strike where they said that government needed to reverse the cost of fuel as it is. They needed to revert to implementing the fuel subsidy as it is because of the attendant impact on the cost of living for an average Nigerian. They said that the government needed to ensure that it put measure in place to cushion the effect. They talked about the matter of the refineries working, that government must ensure that that is no longer part of this conversation as it is now. It's concerning for some persons.
You see, it's unfortunate that we are debating about labor today. And the inconsistency is actually born out of the fact that we don't know if we are talking about LP or NLC.
Really?
That is the situation we have on ground today.
So it's being politicized? Is that what you're saying?
This is a serious compromise because the NLC president today cannot even state where he belongs. Because we know what happened pre the election, and we know what is happening now. And nobody can take over the job of the opposition party. No agency, no organization. So the NLC president should know that Nigeria belongs to everybody. And nobody should cause crisis that might not be able to be managed. We've gone through the NSAS issue. We know what it cost us in Lagos. Many people that caused that crisis don't live in Lagos, they don't belong to Lagos. I'm a full-fledged Lagosian, and I know it cost us. So today, if I'm talking, I know what we went through. So we should manage this country. And we know Lagos is the heartbeat of Nigeria. Anything that happens in Lagos gets around the whole nation. So now, in issue of subsidy removal, it was done in 2021. I was part of the 9th Assembly, Content Assembly. During the PIA Act approval, the then president now brought an amendment saying that we should suspend the removal of subsidy, part of it, for 18 months, so that all other areas should be addressed before the full implementation. Where was Labour for that 18 months? Where all these issues should have been addressed? They went to sleep. If you want to talk about CNG, subsidy, palliative, and all the rest, that was the period all these issues should have been resolved. Ashwaju didn't remove the fuel subsidy. He doesn't have the power to do it.
But he was the one that mentioned it.
No!
He said subsidy is gone.
Because it was gone. As the president, he must tell you what is on ground.
Right.
He just told you what was on ground at that period. It would have become illegal for him to even do anything even without mentioning it. It doesn't need to have mentioned it. But someone who is so pragmatic and telling you the way it is. Some people believe as a government you have to dodge the bullet. He doesn't dodge the bullet. As a governor of Lagos State, he never dodged the bullet. He faces his
But after that statement was made, everything began to feel the impact.
Because
that was why Labour decided to start agitating.
It was sworn in
May 29th.
Yeah. And the subsidy would have ended just 2 days after. So naturally, things would have gone the way it went. Either he said it or not. Well, maybe he was just telling us, look, prepare for the hard time to come. Because if he had not said it that day, people would have believed we can make him change the position of the PIA. And it would have been difficult. You see, sometimes we just have to do what we have to do. Now, all the necessary palliatives have been going on. continuously. Recently, all members of National Assembly too have been I've been told to liaise with the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, where we will also be giving fertilizers for our constituents to help the farmers within the constituents. We've done palliative in terms of food subsidy. We've done, the federal government is coming out with the CNG buses. What I think Lagos should be talking about now is, okay, dedicated transportation system, part of those CNG buses, that will be dedicated to workers, labor, so that if you are able to remove some of this cost of living, because what we are saying is minimum wage should be the least any worker can take home. Depending on the kind of job you do, you can negotiate with your employers
on the increment on that.
Yes, because whatever you want to do, like my brother over here said, in any country you should have differences between states. The cost of living in Lagos can never be compared with that of Sokoto.
We'll look at that.
Sokoto workers cannot be negotiating the same amount with Lagos worker or Abuja worker.
We'll look at that.
And that's why all these things should not be put on the table of Mr. President.
We'll look at all of that when we return from this break. Stay with us.
The new Milo 3-in-1 Milky and Creamy is truly milky and contains calcium. So, no need to add milk for that rich, creamy cup, which helps to nourish and energize your kids. Milo 3-in-1 is such a smart choice. Milo, energy to go further.
From Nestle.
All right, as usual, we have conversations behind the scene, but thank you for joining us. We're still looking at the matter of a conversation on minimum wage between the federal government, organized labor, the tripartite committee, which will continue later today, and we still have our guests in the studio talking with us on this matter. Let me come to you now, Michael. He raised a matter that some persons have spoken to, which you also laid credence to, the viability of states, that the matter of minimum wage should be subject to how viable states are, and it shouldn't be unified as it is. Should we be looking at that? Because that conversation has been coming here and there, but it seems that not much attention is being paid to this matter.
That's, you're quite right on that, because when labor are fighting a cause, it's universal.
Right.
But ideally, it shouldn't be a blanket on all the states. You have to look into, I think every state has a labor organization in every individual state, chapters. Now, what they're supposed to do is you sit down with your government in that state to actually see the economic viability.
They did that at some point.
Individually, I'm talking about subnationals now.
Yes, they did that earlier this year.
Now, if that's been done, then obviously they shouldn't be coming on board to be fighting for just one cause that covers everybody. They should be talking about every state. Then how much can you pay? What's the viability of the economy of the state to be able to pay its workers? Now, don't forget also that when we're fighting a cause based on by the NLC, we should also be looking at the private enterprise as well. Because obviously, if the government comes up today and say, okay, I can pay XYZ amount of money, how does that affect, or what implications is that going to have on the private sector? Can the private sector also pay the amount of money the government's going to pay?
Well, they have come out to say that they can afford the 60,000 naira that was earlier agreed on by the government.
But can I shock you? I've asked this question quite a few times, and that's part of my advocacy. If you're going to come out, either the government or the Labour Congress, about a certain amount of money to be paid as minimum wage or living wage, what are the indices that you use to actually come to that figure? If we're talking about 60,000, how do you justify 60,000? How many people do you have in a household that you could actually use and implement that figure onto? Because as we speak today, the purchasing power of the naira is actually been depleted. Now, I have a figure in here. I'm not quite sure if you have enough time to do that. But if I'm going to have to put the figure on the table, if I'm within that negotiating table, I'll be proposing a 180,000 naira.
Why 180,000?
Great. Now, I had a figure that actually made me to come to this figure. Now, the cost of living today has skyrocketed. About a year ago, a loaf of bread is being sold for about 500 naira. Okay? As we speak today, the same size loaf of bread is being sold for about 1,500. Okay? The bucket, the small buckets of paint buckets of beans, which is a normal commodity, that was sold for about 2,300 about a year ago. It's now 9,000 naira. The same bucket of gari that is being sold for about 750 naira is now being sold for about 3,800. Now, if you have about, I base this judgment on a household of 5, that is a father, the mother, and 3 children. Okay? Now, if they're going to have a breakfast, I'm basing this on just having a breakfast and a dinner, not even talking about lunch. So I call it 101 analysis. Now, for a household of 5, you buy a loaf of bread, which is 1,500. You're going to have to buy milk. A 120 ml of milk today is sold for 400 naira. Now, if you put our figures together, 1,500, 400 for the milk, the sugar, the water. A sachet of water now is sold for about 350 to 400 naira. Now, putting all that together as we speak today, now, a breakfast will cost you 2,500
a family of 5?
Family of 5. Minimum, I'm talking about the modest, minimum 2,500 every morning. If you multiply that by 30 days, that is 75,000 naira. That's in a month. So that has surpassed the 6,000 we're talking about now. Now, going further, the dinner, I'm not even talking about lunch now. For the dinner, a bucket of beans that's about 9,000 now, a size of gari, 750 going to 3,800. Put that price together. I'm not even talking about other amenities like the subsidy, like semovita, gunpowder, just beans and gari.
You've not talked about soup, fish,
I'm not even talking about that. Now, that will cost you to have a dinner. It will cost you, what's the figure in here? It will cost you 30,000 every single month. So calculate, add 75 plus 30. That will give you 105. Yeah. Okay? Now, going further, accommodation.
School fees.
In the most remote part of the country today, for a household of 5, it will cost you nothing less than 250 naira. Okay? Now, they're going to have to pay for electricity. Let's put them on band D, which is the lowest. It will cost that household of 5, 10,000 naira every single month. So 105 plus 35, it will give you 140 in a month. That is just for household of 5. On the assumption that the husband travels to work, he's the only one that works, that goes to work every day.
That's a lot.
And assuming that he lives closer to his house.
You see, sorry for continuing.
Yeah.
You see, when you're talking about minimum wage,
yeah.
Let's take the civil service as an example, and that's level 1.
Yeah.
Level 1. In Lagos State, I don't know every other part of Nigeria.
Yeah.
There's no longer level 1 in Lagos State. You start from level 4.
Yeah.
So no 30,000 naira in Lagos as at present. Because we are saying minimum, we're saying the least, not that what government is paying. Some people talk as if an average worker in Lagos State collects 30,000 naira. There are people who collect over 1 million naira in the service.
Depends on the grade.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we should not be talking as some people say, let the politicians to collect 30,000 naira. I say 30,000 naira is what the workers in the state collect. We are saying like you are doing not in the least you can get. That's level 1. Like you don't have any primary school, you don't have anything. In Lagos State, nothing like that again. The least you can get is level 4 now in Lagos. I don't know other states. So that's what we're saying with you. And now if you are on that level 1, and you want to be classed among those who have 1 wife, 3 children. What are you doing with it?
Doing with what exactly?
With the 3 children, if you are on level 1.
If God blessed you with the children,
let God bless you with resources.
Really?
Yes.
You say with the way
we are going.
You can't blame people for having the number of children they have.
Look, we are not in a socialist country. We are in a capitalist country.
Right.
We should be very objective. You get paid based on what you do, not what you have at home to take care of.
Right.
This is a capitalist country.
So
you cannot.
If God bless the person with with more than 1 child, and
God didn't just bless you. You made it.
You made it happen.
You made the children.
So if the child comes, we say children are gifts from God. So that's not the issue.
Look,
so,
what we are saying.
Yes.
What you are saying. Look, you are not helping people by not letting them know the truth. You say someone on level 1 because all your calculation now is based on a size of family, and you should not place such a family on level 1. Irregular alabaru in Lagos today that carries load for you in the market makes a contribution of about 5,000 naira daily now. After expenses.
Okay.
They still make about contribution of 5,000 naira daily. That means they don't earn less than 200,000 naira monthly.
You think so?
I know so. I know so.
How do you know?
I was born in the market. I live in the market. I operate in markets. So a labourer today gets about 8,000 naira a day.
But how much value is that bringing to the home of the person?
What we are saying is, just when we are talking about minimum wage, so to them now, your minimum is 8,000 naira a day. It depends on how many days you are ready to work in the month. That determines how much you go home with. So if you now have the family of 5, you know you have to be sure that you work 20 days a month, so that you'll be able to meet up with your responsibilities. What we are saying is, government will not pay you or any other worker. Like you have workers at home. We don't pay them based on the responsibility they have to face at home. We pay them based on the job they do for us. So we should be talking about what the person does, not about the responsibility he has at home. Because minimum wage is not just about the government. It's not that government going to take care of what your problems at home. Government can take care of all those expenses by creating other areas about free education.
Isn't it about the improvement of the life of the worker?
What we are saying is, it's just not about government workers now. Government will take care of some areas, free education, this education loan that has just been introduced.
Right.
Then the other areas that government will take care of some issues for you. But as a worker, what you are supposed to take home should be commensurate with the job you do. What about a business that does not even earn more than $1 million turnover in a month? And the workers, maybe you have 5 workers, and each worker wants to go home with 150,000 naira.
Let me ask you a question.
Right.
In as much as I agree with some of the things that you made mention earlier, I'm not going to agree with the fact that somebody has to determine how many kids they have. I'm not going to agree with that.
So it's not going to be based on your economic capacity?
No. You're talking about individualism now.
Yes, I will say whatever children you want to have should be based on your own economic capacity.
In your understanding, how many people should be in the household? By your understanding, how many people should be in the household?
Economic institutions, structures, other social institutions.
That's a pertinent question.
I am an economist.
Yeah.
Economic institutions, structures, other social institutions. The economy of an area determines the building, the family size, and many other things.
What's the family size?
What's the idea?
Based on your own economy.
No. You see, every government of every nation anywhere in the world determine and base their policies on a given figure.
I have a family of 4.
4?
Yes.
So are you based on, so what you say now is every family in the country should have 4? Every house?
No. I don't know. I believe that's what my economy can carry.
You see, if you have a policy that they have in China whereby they say...
I have colleagues with family of 30.
If there's a policy in this country that says you can't have more than 2 children or a child, then I will agree with that.
You won't do that in a capitalist economy. You do that only in a socialist economy.
So that's the reason I'm not going to agree with you saying, based on the household, I can't base my statistics on a family of 5.
No, you are basing. You see, you're basing the minimum wage. It's not you break the average rate. You have based the average rate on the average size. So if you say the minimum wage is whatever it is, but the average rate might be maybe about 300, 400,000 naira per month. Because by the time we look at, let's say the service as it is today, an average size wage in the service is not less than 250.
Do you remember?
What I'm saying now is in the service today, in Lagos today, the average salary is not less than 250. We are looking about the average
in the civil service.
In the civil service.
So
now there you can now say the average family size is now 5 based on average. Right. We are not taking extreme low from one side, then you're now taking extreme high from the other side.
All right, interesting.
Family of 5 should be average or even high.
Because of our time, gentlemen, we need to make good use of our time so that we address some other issues. He touched on something, talking about how it is that not all states are viable as it is. And so
that's also one of the factors.
Yes, and so perhaps we should not centralize the matter of minimum wage as it is. And then we saw this morning reports from Femi Falana saying that state governments can handle the matter of minimum wage because the fuel subsidy has been removed. They are getting more federal allocation. But that's not the issue when we see it as it is, because some states are still owing the 30,000 naira minimum wage up until now.
Yes.
And he's saying that moving forward, perhaps we need to start prosecuting some of the states who do not implement.
Governor Otis was still being begged by the labor union some few months ago to pay the 30,000 naira. And that's the Labour Party.
It's not about the party right now. Let's focus on the issue.
We'll talk about the issue because the issue is interwoven. The people, Labour Party, NSA owns the Labour Party.
Right.
It's not that I'm saying it. That is the situation. They're even fighting on ownership. So now, if the party they own, the only governor they have is not yet able to pay.
He's not the only one that hasn't paid those money.
Is what they went to meet. They were begging him just a few months ago. They were begging him to pay the 30,000 naira. They didn't lock up a state. They were begging him to pay the 30,000 naira. If you are still begging someone a few months ago to pay 30,000 naira, and now you are going for 400 and something thousand, let's be reasonable.
It might be dependent on the economic viability of that state.
That's what we are saying. You see, when you want to determine the minimum wage, you take the pay of the least employer. What the least person is ready to pay should be the minimum wage. Then others will now build on it.
You can now negotiate.
Yes, that's what we are saying. I'm not saying an average rate, the rate is okay. I'm not saying this an average rate should have a ceiling. Some people could have want to pay people working in NNPC. Do you know how much they collect? They collect millions. People working in NNPC. They are still public servants. There are some agencies that pay so much. So now you're saying that NLC should organized labor rather should look at states and engage. Yes, let them engage. I agree with put a minimum that everybody will be able to pay. Yeah. But now start on each state. If you come to Lagos, you make a case for Lagos. You look at what and again, it's not just about what the state hand. It's the priority of the state. What stage are you in the nation development? There is a stage. Sometimes you are in the construction stage. You got to a stage that you built all your infrastructure. You are just services. You are just only working on service. So people pay for services. People get paid for providing the services. So there are so many factors we have to put together in some of these issues. But what you are just saying is the minimum should be what the least person, even should not even be government now. It is the private sector.
What they can afford.
Yes, because the government can still afford whatever. If you are going to put all the money on salary, government can never run bankrupt. You will get loan. But private sector cannot get loan to run a business.
But getting that loan to be servicing salaries as it is, it's not healthy for the economy.
No, if that's your priority as a nation, if your priority is to continue to pay workers.
But we all know that it's not healthy for our nation.
Government is what you want government to do. We are working for you. If you say our priority as a nation is this, if you sponsor the bill, bring it to the National Assembly, once we pass it, that 80% of our money should go into payment of salaries, it becomes a law.
But that won't be healthy.
That won't be
that won't be.
You see, look, we cannot be going forth and back. Yeah. We must decide what we want.
Well, that's what the president has said. He has given the finance minister 2 days to
work out the modality. And that's what we expected the NLC to have done. Okay, this is what you hand. This is what we feel is going into a personnel cost. Should they increase the personnel cost?
You see,
or not?
I think I am
the chairman. Let me give you a shocker. I'm the chairman of Electoral Matters, House Committee on Electoral Matters. INEC bought its budget this year. The budget was about 69 billion. We approved only, the envelope given to INEC was 40 billion. The personnel cost alone, I think, the total budget is 89 billion. So the personnel cost alone out of this is about 54 billion. Personnel cost is 54 billion. So what they got is 40. Even this 40 billion is not enough to service their personnel cost, not overhead.
So why is that difference? What happened?
Well, we have to still look at ways on getting supplementary budget for them. So what we are talking about is if an agency whose personnel cost is already about 50-something billion as of today, by the time we now go into the wage increment, we should be talking about probably over 100 billion. So before we even go into the supplementary we want to do, we must have resolved this issue of minimum wage. We look at what each agency, and it's just one agency. Just one agency. When it comes to personnel cost, there's nothing like wastage in it. It's salaries, not overhead, not allowances. So if you know what it costs in Nigeria, we are talking about a budget that has more than 40% for overhead cannot be considered as an LD budget, which is still under development. So you look at all these things holistically. And for government to pay, sometimes, well, you just have to decide. If you have to pay so much, as long as you are not overshooting the percentage, you decide to lay off people. And employment,
that's the implication.
Employment in Nigeria, government employment, is more about social service than the real work. COVID has exposed everybody. During COVID, only directors were allowed to come to the office. They said everybody should stay at home. And the job was going on.
People were working from home.
So that means government does not need more than 20% of the labor force it has today. But you cannot, as a government, say you want to lay off people.
Well, as it is, with the kind of overhead or the cost that you have pointed out, at the end of the day, can the government afford it? Because that is one big question that is on the lips of some Nigerians. The level of our productivity, side by side, the implication of this might be at the end of the day. Yeah. Can we handle it? Can we afford it? Is it sustainable? Which is one of the questions that the president has also raised. Absolutely.
I mean, like you rightly said earlier on, we have a quantum of number of people working. And in some cases, if you look at it critically, majority of those workers doesn't have to be there. Because obviously you could actually streamline the number of workers that you have. Actually been assigning more responsibility to 1 or 2 people that 5 people are doing. I mean, I can, as a responsible government, go to borrow money to pay salaries. I'm not going to do that. Because obviously it's going to have a negative effect on the economy. I can't keep borrowing them and be paying. Nobody does that in any client, to borrow money to pay staff salary. If you have to lay them off, you have to make provision. Because the primary responsibility of any government is about lives and property. So if the people has to live in a decent way and manner, then you have to make provision for that. But to get people in to be working for you when you don't need them or you can't afford to pay the salaries, why do you have to do that? You can't do it. I'm not going to borrow money to pay my staff salary. I have to pay based on what you do. So you could do pay per head. Look at the productivity of what everybody is doing and say, okay, like what he said earlier on, that during the COVID era, we saw large number of people didn't go to work. Majority was from home. Yeah. You could begin to downsize. All of you don't have to come to work every day. For example, we're talking about minimum wage now. You want salary increment. Now, if you look at all the associated costs that makes people to pay more money, like transportation, feeding, housing and all that, the government has the responsibility to actually provide housing so that you could actually reduce the cost of housing, social housing.
Yeah.
Okay? And also, you could actually look into the area of like, why do you have to come to work every day when you have the facilities? I will borrow money to create infrastructure where people could work from home and do other things instead of commuting to work every day. So that will reduce the cost. If I borrow money to put infrastructure into place, that makes economic sense. But I'm not going to borrow money to pay salary because I don't want to lay people off. So what we should be looking holistically here now is, why can't we afford to pay this amount of money? Like the federal government says, the labor figure put on the table, it's not sustainable. They can't pay.
That's the 494,000.
Yeah. So what you need to do is, if I can't pay, this is how much I can pay. So what do I have to do to actually make sure? Do I have to lay off staff? Do I have to reduce my workforce and make them work elsewhere? Or do I have to make provision whereby they don't have to come to work every single day? So there are a lot of policies that the government needs to put in place to actually make sure, okay, this is what I can afford, this is what I can't afford, and so on and so forth.
That's basically rethinking the civil service.
Absolutely. And also, we're talking about, what everybody is talking about now is, if care is not taken, we're looking at the federal civil service. We still have the subnationals,
yes,
which are the states. Now, the federal government can afford to say, okay, I can pay XYZ amount of money for all the federal civil service. What about the states? Civil servants as well. Can that government of that state afford to pay that money? So that is where I think the labor, the organized labor should be looking into, to actually begin to negotiate with every individual state. I mean, the federal government, what we're talking about now is about the federal government, because they can say, okay, tomorrow, this is how much I can pay. But looking inwards, the subnationals could suffer.
They afford it, yeah.
The private sector will also suffer. So it's going to be like, how can I put this? The government also have to look into it. Wherever they're going to come up with within today, tomorrow, whenever, how are you going to be able to implement such policy to make sure that it doesn't have any negative effect on the private sector? Okay? Now, if you implement the figure now, then the government has more work to do. How do you have to survive as a, like TVC now, if they say everybody has to, include the cleaners, minimum wage, has to be, let's say, 300,000. Can TVC pay a cleaner 300,000? So where the government has to come in is, okay, what we're going to do is look into the taxation regime. Okay? Now, are you going to begin to give companies tax holiday, reduce their corporation taxes? Because this is what we're going through now. We are all in this game, but it's not going to go on for a long time. Maybe 1, 2, 3 years. But within that period of time, that's where we're going to say, okay, for you to survive, without the private sector, there's no economy.
Right.
So for you guys to survive, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to look into your tax implication and say, okay, if you're paying ₦1 million towards incorporation tax every year, we'll have to look into it. How many staff do you have that could cover that minimum wage? Okay, we'll reduce your tax implication from 1 million to about, let's say, $500,000. So the rest of the money that you're supposed to pay us, you use that to implementation of your personal policies. So government has a real critical way to play in this as well. But before they make any announcement or pronouncement, they have to look into not just the the public sector alone. They have to carry along the private sector to make sure that the economy doesn't break down, or else we're going to have hyperinflation.
Well, I think one area labor should also be looking at.
Right.
It's not just the salary. You mentioned something about the housing situation, transportation. One major problem we're having in the public sector is this posting system, where you post people from one state to another or from one area to another. I believe the commissions should be relieved of that function because it's killing the housing system. You see, what a civil servant benefits those is this rent or own housing.
Yes.
If I'm employed in K2 here and I serve through K2, so the local government can build flats for staff, which you pay rent for probably 20 years, then you own it. But in a situation where you have been posted from one state to another, from one location to another. That has actually killed that system. So most of the civil servants now don't have houses because you cannot maintain, you cannot rent a house here, you post it to another place, you are paying about 2-3 rents. Your children are somewhere, you are in another place. So these are some of the areas you have to help the people. Yeah, we are talking about let's grow this economy. NLC should be talking about how do we grow this economy. The oil production, we're giving 1.5 million barrels a day to produce. We cannot even meet the target. Dangote and the other refineries will be needing at least another 1.5 million. We should be talking about building our oil production to 3 million barrels a day.
All right.
We should be talking about removing importation of fuel. Finally, we should be talking about buying made in Nigeria
products. Indeed.
Which is going to help the local economy.
Yeah.
Because we are not growing the economy, we should not be talking about improved minimum wage. Government cannot sustain it.
Our time is up, unfortunately. Thank you so much. So much has been said, and I believe that the necessary parties have listened and will take the needed lessons and all of it from all of this conversation. Chairman, House Committee on Electoral Matters, Honorable Prince Bayo Balogun, as well as Public Affairs Analyst Michael Adeleye. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having us.
Well, this is where we draw the curtains on the program for today. Let's let you know that the views and reactions of all our resource persons are theirs and have no connection with TVC News. Up next is Your View with the Ladies, and afterwards is This Morning with Yori Folarin. Stay safe.